So, hello, salvage ethnography. That's what I want to talk to you about today. What is salvage ethnography? Salvage ethnography, I'll say it one more time, salvage ethnography. Salvage ethnography is the following. It's the idea that you are effectively salvaging, right? You're saving a certain part of a culture, or indeed a whole culture. In the case of Franz Boas, who was an early advocate of this, the German father of American ethnography, all of these labels, Franz Boas said, okay, right, I'm going to go out through North America, his adopted home. Well, in the case specifically of the US, but he went through what's now Canada, etc. too. I'm going to go through North America, my adopted continent, let's say, and I'm going to salvage what there is left of the indigenous cultures, or I'm going to record them for posterity, the indigenous North American cultures, so that we, in the West, broadly speaking, have access to them, but also perhaps for the people themselves. In fact, he was an early activist of many social causes, cultural diversity, you name it, within the United States, and very much opposed to nationalism and other such things which are very common throughout his lifetime and common throughout ours perhaps as well. I mean, perhaps you're watching this far in the future from when I've recorded this, but I'm recording this in 2026. So yes, nationalism very much on the menu at the moment. Anyway, at any rate. So Boas and others are big proponents of this salvage ethnography. You can think of a different word that starts with sal, and close enough ends with vig. Salvation. Of course, we talk a lot about, in the so-called left-leaning circles, about something called the white savior syndrome, or being attracted by the notion of being a white savior. So someone from the West, usually white, of course, although increasingly there are non-white people from the West doing similar things, but the traditional archetype is a white Western man as well, usually, although not always, going out to the other parts of the world. The parts of the world where people are not white and have very different cultures from the people who happen to be white, etc. And what do? They go around and they save these poor, ignorant people from themselves, etc. This is the narrative, at least. And this is very real. This does happen, and you do see this. But at the same time, there's also an argument to be made that all culture is worth promoting, preserving, or allowing to change, but on its own terms, at its own rate, and not be bulldozed, be erased, be overwhelmed by a different culture. Especially not a sort of imperialist culture, etc. So the logic goes, right? I'm not here to talk politics, as it were, but this is the narrative. So it gets me thinking, because I full disclosure, I opened up a basic history of anthropology textbook that I found lying around one day, and I thought, oh, I love to read the old, they used to put the word out there. Used to go through a page and used to have a word in boldface, and then they would define it. And they would perhaps problematize it in a paragraph or two. And I actually think that's quite a good way to make a textbook. Not a huge fan of textbooks to begin with, but if you're going to make a textbook, I think that's probably a better way to do it than, sort of a wall of text, or indeed a sort of, whatever, fill in the blank or what have you that they sometimes do now. But I quite like that. So I was reading that, and I came across a section on Franz Boas, and indeed one of the terms associated with this German father of American ethnography, anthropology, etc., was salvage ethnography. And I thought, well, in anthropology and linguistics, to a large extent, that is something we do. We do a lot of salvaging. In my own work, documentation work, which is very common in anthropological linguistics and linguistic anthropology, but I would argue anthropology writ large, and many social sciences related there too, we go out, we, the practitioner, the anthropologist, the linguist, or whatever, or, in my case, hopefully something of a mix of all of these things, and we go out and we say, right, here's something that will be lost forever if we don't record it. I always try and do this in conjunction with the local people. Do they recognize that as something interesting? I'm still going to do my work, of course, and I'm going to do it in an ethical way and get consent to do it, and I might be interested in it. But my goal is always, of course, if possible, can this also be of use to the local people? I find some aspect of their culture very interesting. They might find the same aspect of their culture interesting, and we can work together to achieve all of our goals. We can document it, we can preserve it, etc. In my case, with a lot of aspects of maybe non-typical features in Western languages that exist in other languages, such as, I'll just throw it out there, Amazonian or Andean languages in South America, for instance, or Central African languages, you name it, sound symbolism, East Asia, Southeast Asia. You can see other videos I've made about this, spread across a large part of the world. These terms, these bits of language which evoke nature, etc., it's sort of related to onomatopoeia. Again, see the description for other videos on this, but these onomatopoeia sound effect words, effectively, they're very rare in Western languages. And in fact, they exist a lot in children's literature, and then they disappear in the adult realm. Not completely, but certainly in formal writing. Anyway, this aspect, this whole other aspect, which is in danger of disappearing as a concept, as a cultural category based on differing language ideologies. Say in the case of South America, if, let's take the example of, I don't know, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, etc. It might exist in, say, Quechuan languages, or indeed Amazonian languages, or Andean languages, and Quechuan kind of straddles the two sometimes. And then they don't really exist in Spanish, or if they do, they're associated only with rustics, with farmers, with etc., whatever traditionally defined the peasant working class, etc. And if the ideology is set against those people, such that those people are not seen as, I don't know, protectors of culture or something like this, but are seen as sort of economically disadvantaged, something not to aspire to, as the ideology may be in those countries, then people might not even bother to transfer that category. Or if they do, in a very limited way, and be ashamed, laugh almost when you suggest, oh, do you make these sounds? Do you imitate nature when you talk? Do you evoke, as it were, even spirits, etc.? It may have a theological component sometimes, etc., etc. And these people go, oh, no, that's something that's for, that's for the rural folk, as it were. That's not something for me. So it's on its way out, maybe, in a lot of cases. Sometimes it adapts. Sometimes people take the same category and they transfer it, say, to an urban environment or a new economy or something like this, but not always. And so if it's in danger, circling back, if it's in danger of extinction or of changing beyond recognition, is it worth salvaging, saving, or hopefully promoting, etc.? And frequently the answer is yes, that would be a great thing. But as I say, there's also that sort of savior ideology where people come in and save something, and then it's sort of, oh, the local people needed this exterior savior for themselves, to help themselves. They wouldn't do it purely of their own accord or something. And that's sometimes true in the case of awareness if there's a particular ideology bubble, but it's frequently not true. Right, there are people fully aware of this, etc., and then some exterior person, usually from a more developed country, with university funding, comes in and takes the credit, as it were, for an initiative which has already been going on within the community, etc. But partnerships are available. Partnerships exist, and we can work together in this world. Salvage ethnography. Should we salvage ethnography? And should we salvage ethnography? Almost a tongue twister. I think it's worth salvaging. I think it's worth maintaining in our practices of anthropology, social sciences writ large, linguistics, etc. But I think it's worth being very critical of a very simple narrative of it. So yes, we should work together to preserve what there is, document what there is, so we can understand for posterity what is happening now, and indeed what was happening up until yesterday, to quote the Jared Diamond book. Link in the description as well. Not a perfect book, but an interesting book nonetheless. The World Until Yesterday, how things have been for a long time. Because some things change faster at different rates in different places than others, and extinctions, just like with species, of aspects of culture, not whole cultures, aspects of culture do indeed go extinct. cultures as a whole change, but the aspects thereof, almost like a gene variant, can sort of run its course and not be reproduced into posterity and forever onwards. On the whole, going in with the idea of saving something is not a terrible idea, but it should be mitigated by who's doing the saving, how, for whom. Is it just for a scientific community, or is it also for the larger community, practice community, religious community, speech community, what have you? And is there a way that we can have concordance of all of these interests, agree and work together, instead of perhaps accidentally working at cross purposes with each other, or indeed in such a way that those with more money and power end up winning out, which is easy to let happen, but is not always the most ethical solution in the world, now is it? So I think it's probably best not to let that happen. Let's salvage ethnography, but salvage the bits of it worth having, and let's cast away some destructive tendencies that have emerged within it. But cooperation, preservation, that's all worth saving. Thank you for saving about, at the count, probably about nearly 12 minutes of your time with me, and I hope to see you again on the channel. I look forward to any comments and questions, and you've been a fantastic audience to stay up until this time. Please let me know if you'd like these sort of spontaneous, almost vlog-like style conversations about something, maybe around a topic, but weaving in and out. It's certainly what I like to do in conversation. Unfortunately, there's no camera person, nothing here at the moment, but it's something I'd be interested in doing and making more of a dialogue, even if it's in the form of my monologue, but a dialogue-style monologue. Let me know how you found it, and let me know if you have any other ideas, and you've been very good. Take care.